Welcome back to the Myriad Schedule training course. In this final video in the series, we're going to be concentrating on station rules and how they can be used to control the audio on your station that Myriad Schedule is scheduling. We'll also be looking at how to use Myriad Schedule to actually pick the content either manually or automate the process so that Myriad will automatically always maintain a schedule log. Finally, we'll take a look at some of the reports and other tools available in the system. So let's jump straight in with station rules. If you've watched the previous two videos, then you would have already seen how station rules apply to clocks. Each clock has either the default station rule or a specific station rule assigned to it, and it helps the Myriad Schedule to determine what content can be used or scheduled when that clock is used to generate the log. Station rules contain information about what content should be scheduled if it hasn't been specified in the clock. So if you put a song in the clock but don't tell Myriad Schedule what category that song should be, the station rules are then used to determine which category could be scheduled. In addition, station rules allow you to define which categories are allowed to follow which other categories, and the same thing for tags. If you have Myriad Schedule Plus, you can also specify the minimum maximum in a row for types, genders and eras, and you can also specify the minimum separation for those parameters as well. In both versions, you can set the minimum separation for artist and title, and Myriad Schedule Plus adds more scheduling rules to allow you to control how often content is repeated and when it's repeated relative to other times it's been scheduled. So let's take a look at station rules in action. To access the station rules, look in the clock and rules section and click on station rules. This brings up a list of all the station rules in your system. As you can see, we only have one set of station rules defined in our system at the moment, which are the main station rules. You can also see there's a tick beside it which indicates that this is the default one. And this makes sense if you've only got one, but if we had multiple rules in here, obviously only one of them would be the default, so only one of them would have the tick option here. We can see on the ribbon up here that we can create a new rule set here, or if we highlight a rule set, we can either edit it or delete it, and we can also create a copy of it. And a refresh button just simply reloads them if you've just added a new rule set on a different terminal and you want to make sure it's listed here. You can also see we've got the import tab here, but we're going to come back to this in a short while because we're going to see what's involved with station rules, and then we're going to import some station rules from AutoTrack as well. Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at our default station rules we've got already defined here. So we can either highlight it and click on edit or just simply double click on it. And this opens up the station rules window. So we're going to there's quite a lot of stuff to cover here, so we're just going to work through it and I'm going to explain what each one of these rules does, and then you can work out how that would apply to your station. Okay. So first thing is a station rule set name, nice and simple. Just give it something that you can understand. And then in general, all of the different types of rules available are on the left hand here. And as you highlight, as you select things in here, the options in the right window pane change accordingly. So let's go through all these in order. Now, if you've got Myriad Schedule standard, some of these rules won't be visible, and I'll explain those as we go along. The first section in the song category section is category goals, and this defines what Myriad Schedule should be using to pick content when it hasn't been specifically specified in the clock with regards to songs, because obviously we're in the song category goal section. So just to refresh your memory, if we go into the edit clock section and take a look at our breakfast advanced clock that we were working on earlier, you'll see that some of the songs in here have a specific category set. So this second item here has a pop category set, but the first one has use goals. Now, in this scenario, whenever Myriad Schedule encounters a item that it is saying use goals, whether that's a song or a link, it then refers to either the rules, the station rules that are being applied to this category, or if you're overriding them, it will refer to the overrides that are being applied for this particular clock. Now, when we built this advanced breakfast clock, we didn't override the local rules. We just said use the default station rules, which are the main rules that we're looking at here. So basically, whenever Myriad Schedule is scheduling from this list of log items that we want to be scheduled, every time it comes to use goal for a song, it will refer to the station rules, and it will use the category goals on these station rules to determine which songs should be scheduled. So as you can see, we have a list of categories here, song categories. We also have a count, an items number count, which tells us how many songs are in each one of those categories. So you can see here that we've got 198 pop songs, but only 7 blues songs. The weighting allows you to see, or allows you to choose relative to the other categories that are selected, how much of this particular category should be picked. So as you can see at the moment, the slider is in the middle for all of these categories, which means there's equal weighting on all these categories. And that is reflected if I go back into my advanced clock and look at the song categories. You can see here are the categories that are selected, and you can see that they are all even. So there's just as much chance of a A-list song as there is of a soul song or a blues song. But in reality, we know that we haven't got as many blues songs, only 7, or soul songs, only 12, compared to pop songs or gold songs. So what we would probably do is create a more realistic mix of content within our station rules. So we may increase the amount of pop, reduce the amount of gold and dance, and in our generic ones, we probably don't want to play any specialist music, so we may not play any jazz or blues or soul. We may not play any dance music, but I'll leave that in. So we have a bit of dance, we've got some A-list, we've got some gold, a little bit of rock, and a small bit of R&B. If I hit OK on this and now go back to my clock, so I go back to edit clock and double click on the breakfast advanced, and now when I click on the song category goals, we can see the mix of music has changed so that we are predominantly playing pop, gold, dance, rock, and a bit of R&B and an A-list as well. So now our song category goals, when the system is picking songs and the categories haven't been defined, it will use the mix of music as defined in that station rule set. So let's go back in and see what other things we can set. We also have a min and max in a row. Now this is how many songs of that particular category can be placed in a row if they haven't been defined in the clock. It's an important point to know that if you define in the clock, it always overrides other things. So I may say never play more than 2 gold back to back, and if the system is picking gold music based because the clock items have been set to use goals, it will never play more than 2 gold category songs back to back. However, if I specify 3 gold songs back to back in the clock, it will play 3 gold songs because the clock always overrides the station rules in that scenario. You can use this to force maximums in a row, or indeed minimums in a row. You could have it so that you have 2 is the minimum gold. So whenever it plays 1 gold song, it will always then have to pick a gold song as the next song as well. So you can set the minimum and maximum for each category. By setting them to 1 and 99, we're effectively saying we don't care about minimum and maximum in a row. Now, if you have Myriad Schedule Plus, you also have a separation column. This is used to say how many songs of a different category have to be played before you can repeat the same one again. So let's say I was going to put a separation of 2 onto my dance category. Now, what that means is Once we schedule a dance category song, Myriad Schedule has to pick songs from 2 other categories before it can consider a dance song again. And this is another good way of forcing the system to mix up so it doesn't play songs from the same categories too often. Okay, that's the category goals. Now we're going to move on to the category rules. And these are set on a per category basis. So for each song category you have here, you choose, you have to set a different set of rules. Now, not all of the rules on here will be available to Myriad Schedule standard customers. Some of these are plus only rules. So I'll go through and I'll point out which ones are which. So currently I'm working on the A list. So you can see that the rules have been outlined here. So let's go through them one at a time. The first one is the search depth. So this is this is only enabled if you have enhanced scheduling turned on. You may remember from the first video we talked about enhanced scheduling, which uses a deck of cards. So each category is effectively a deck of cards. And when a song schedules, it moves to the back of the deck. Well, this search depth is how far down the deck to check before giving up. And this is one of the prime differences between Myriad Schedule or using enhanced or standard scheduling is when you have enhanced scheduling turned on, you can then set this deck depth or the search depth so that the system will know to only check so far back into category before it starts removing breakable rules. Without that, the system will check everything. So songs that don't break many rules will tend to get scheduled more often than songs that break rules. However, if you use enhanced scheduling that uses a deck of card type method, then the system will, in the case of the A list here, only check to 50% of all items before it says, I cannot schedule this slot, remove the bottommost breakable rule and carry on and try again. So you should set for small categories like an A list or specialist songs, specialist categories, you probably set your search depth to be 100% so that all the songs inside the A list will be considered for any slot that needs an A list song. But for larger categories, like say you've got a pop category or a recurrent category or some other category that has a large amount of content, you may want to set this search depth much lower so the system will then will lean more towards removing breakable rules and scheduling stuff in rotation rather than reaching all the way through all of the content on your system looking for something that doesn't break any rules. The problem with that being that you would then tend to schedule those items more regularly. Next, we have the actual scheduling rules for the selected category. As you can see, the first things we've got are song title separation and song artist separation. This is very much just a simple the ability to just say that the song title shouldn't repeat within X many days or hours, and songs by the same artist shouldn't repeat. To edit this, just double click on it, and it'll bring up the edit rule window where you can then set the time and also whether this rule can be broken or should never be broken. So if we want to say that we will never want to hear the same song within 2 hours, we could change this to be a non-breakable item, and you can see the breakable status has changed to no. So now for A-list songs, the title is a non-breakable rule, and it will not repeat the same title within 2 hours. Obviously, you can go through and do the same for artist if you wished, and choose it to set your duration and also whether the rule should be breakable or never breakable. If you have Myriad Schedule Plus, you also have some additional rules here. So you can see like yesterday, tomorrow rule. This is very simply if we scheduled a midday today, and I set this to be, say, 2 hours, this would prevent this song title from being scheduled between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. yesterday and tomorrow, which reduces the risk of someone who only listens to your station in their lunch break from hearing the same songs. because obviously if you're relying on your title or artist separation, that time may well have elapsed between today's lunchtime show and yesterday's lunchtime show. But by using the yesterday, tomorrow separation, you can prevent that song from being scheduled within the same rough time frame to prevent people from hearing the same songs at the same time during the day. We also have some other rules which just allow you to enforce rules that we'll come to later. So min-max separation in a row, you can basically you can remove it altogether, or you can make it breakable. So you maybe that you want to have these things so that you would prefer to not play more than 3 of a particular category in a row. But if you make it a breakable rule, then the system can do that. These only apply in Myriad Schedule Plus, of course, because you only have type, gender, and era for Myriad Schedule Plus. Okay. Again, these aren't the actual rules. The actual rules are set down here in the type, genders, and era sections. This is just whether to actually apply this rule as part of the category scheduling. Okay, so you can do that for all of those, as well as the tag max in a row. That is available for both Myriad Standard and Myriad Schedule Plus customers, as both have access to tags. Then finally, we've got the category follow rules, which is basically which categories are allowed to follow the A-list, as we're working on the A-list now. So currently, all of our other categories are allowed to follow, but we may decide that we never want to play a dance or a gold song directly after an A-list song. So in which case, if I untick gold, then every time the system schedules an A-list song, it won't play a gold song afterwards, which makes sense because if you were playing an A-list song, you may not want to go straight from that to an old song. So you may choose not to not allow the system to put those two things back to back. Just before we move on from here, I just wanted to cover a few of the other options you have here. You can add more rules in here, and we'll be adding more and more rules, particularly for Myriad Schedule Plus customers. So you can add in additional rules in here, and you can also set the criteria for them. You can edit the rule, of course, by clicking on the edit button, which is the same as double clicking, and you can remove a rule altogether. You can also edit the order of these rules, so you can take one and you can move it up or down. Now, the reason for that is, I mentioned earlier that with the search depth, the system will then try songs up to the maximum search depth in any one category. And then if it hasn't found an item in that first pass, it then removes the bottommost breakable rule and tries again. And then if it doesn't find it on the second pass, it'll then remove the next lowest breakable rule, and so on until it hits a non-breakable rule, at which point then that slot will remain unscheduled because there has been nothing that has fitted the bill, even with removing all the breakable rules. So because these breakable rules are weighted in terms of the one at the bottom is the least important and the one at the top should be the most important, you can change the order. So if some of these criteria are more important to you than others, then you can change them so that they are higher up in the breakable rule list. Finally, you can copy the selected rules. So if I've got these rules are just what I want, I can copy them, and in a second we can then paste them into one of the other categories. There's also the option there's the paste rule button there. And you can also reset all the rules to the defaults as well. So if you do a bunch of stuff and it's not really working out for you, you can reset everything back to the sort of standard rules if you wish to. So that's the A-list done. Let's move on to our pop category. You can see we've got something similar here. I've only got a search depth of 50 in there, and I could just paste in my rules if I wanted to. But you can see I've now got some duplicate rules. So it's warning me that I've got some duplicate rules that I may want to get rid of. If I hover over it, it actually tells me that there's a conflicting rule. With what this rule conflicts with one or more rules that are So basically I've got the same rules in more than once. So it's just telling me, you know what, these rules are not going to apply. So I'm just going to get rid of the ones that are duplicates, and that's all good. So obviously you can work your way through your categories, setting them for each one, which we won't do because they're all the same. But what we will do is move on to the other items we have. Now, if you have Myriad Schedule Plus, we also have types, and there's far less in the types, really. You can choose if you go onto the type goals, basically we've got a minimum, a maximum, and a separation. So this works the same as it did for songs. So you can set the minimum, maximum in a row, or the separation between those types. You can also set whether or not a type is actually allowed at all by unticking them or ticking the option. So if I untick modern here, any modern type song will not be allowed whenever this station rule is applied. The type follow rules allow you to select what types are allowed to follow other types. So if I click on a particular type, you'll see a list of other types that are allowed to follow. In this case, there are only 2 types available, so the only thing I can choose is modern. But if I untick modern, then whenever a classic type is played, it cannot be followed by a modern type. These sets of options are then replicated for genders and eras. The song tags options allow you to set the maximum in a row for any tag, and this is available for both Myriad Schedule Standard and Myriad Schedule Plus customers. All the options we've looked at so far have been applied to songs, but we have a very similar set of rules for links. So if I expand the link category section, you can see we've got the similar category goals, which again will be used for any links in a clock that don't have a specific category set. As with songs, you can set a minimum and maximum in a row, although it's less likely to apply for links. And Myriad Schedule Plus customers can also set the separation. As with the songs, you can also go into the link rule category scheduling rules, and you can set separation, and most of these are really just applying to max and min in a row, as we don't have the kind of artist separation rules you would do for songs. And certainly most of these rules here will only be available for Myriad Schedule Plus customers, with the exception of tag max in a row. But these rules are far less likely to come into play because you don't usually play links multiples in a row. You can also do the follow rules as well, so you can see which categories of links are allowed to follow the selected category. So in this case, we're not allowed to play a promo or a sweeper after a station ID. But once again, when are you going to play 2 or 3 links back to back anyway? So it's less applicable. If you have Myriad Schedule Plus, you can also set the type goals and follow rules for types, genders, and eras. And both Myriad Standard and Schedule Plus customers can set maximum in a row for tags. But again, much less likely to apply in terms of links. So that's a station rule set. Then let's take a look at if we wanted to create a second station rule set. Okay, so I've got my default one here, and I could either highlight it and choose create a copy of the selected item, or I could create a new one from scratch. Let's create a new one from scratch. Click on new, and I'm going to call this one pop only. And in this one, I'm going to go into my song category goals, and I'm going to set all of them to 0 except for pop, which I'm going to set at 100. And I'm going to leave my separation at 0, and I'm going to leave my min-max as 1 and 99. So I'm effectively not worried about in a row, and I'm not applying separation. And I'm telling it, if you haven't specified the clock, specified the category in the clock, then pick pop category all times. I could then go into the pop category. It might be a good idea for me to go in here and relax some of these rules. So I might say, actually, you know what? It doesn't matter if I hear the same title as long as it's a minimum of an hour apart. That's okay. So I could hit OK on that, and I could take out any of these other rules if I wish to. I could prevent, because I only want to use pop category, I could prevent all these other ones, but there's really no requirement to, because in the category goals we've told it to only pick pop music anyway, so there is no requirement for us to set any of the follow rules. I'm not going to set any types, genders or eras, and I'm not going to worry too much about the link categories, although I am going to take promos out of the mix a little bit as well, because I don't want any promos coming up unexpectedly. So that's created my station rule set. I could obviously go in and add a lot more detail into here, but I really don't need to. Just to close off the full circle, why don't we create a pop-only clock as well and assign it into the schedule. So if you remember, click on Edit Clocks. I'm going to create a new clock. And you know what, let's create a simple clock, but base it on our rules. So basically, I'm going to call this one Pop-tastic for my old mate Dave. Click on Simple Clock, Auto Fade, and I'm going to tell it to play pop only. Tell it it's an hour long. I play a jingle every second jingle, and that's all I really need to do. Now, obviously, if I look at my link category goals, you can see most of my links are going to come from the station ID. But my song category goals, I don't actually get a pie chart, because we'd need 2 or more to get anything useful out of this. As we're 100% on pop, then we really don't need to see a breakdown of that as a pie chart. So I'm going to hit OK. And obviously now I have a station rule set for pop only, and I've created a clock for pop only. The only thing left to do is to actually assign it to an hour in a week. So let's say we're going to play this on a Wednesday evening, and we're going to do it, sorry, Pop-tastic wasn't my clock, wasn't it? So Pop-tastic, pop it in there, and so from 9 o'clock to midnight on a Wednesday, my Pop-tastic hour will be scheduled. In the last section, we looked at creating station rules, but if you have an auto-track system that you're coming from AutoTrack 4 or AutoTrack SE into Myriad Schedule, you may well already have all the rules set up. However, there is an issue. Myriad Schedule has a single station rule set, and this combines what would have been covered by clock rules and station rules, or global rules, sorry, in AutoTrack. So the problem we have here is that there was 2 different rule sets in AutoTrack and only a single rule set that is a combination of those in Myriad Schedule. And that meant that in AutoTrack you may have some clocks that are using one set of global rules and a different set of clock rules. So how can you reconcile that with an import? We've come up with a solution which will allow you to actually build station rules out of your AutoTrack system. So I'm going to just quickly run through how you would do that. Click on the station rules option, and instead of the station rules tab, we want to go onto the import tab. So there are 2 options on this tab. The first one is import clock rules, and what this will do is will import a copy of all of the separate clock rules you have in AutoTrack and apply the default global rules to each one of those. So if you've got 5 different clock rule sets and in your AutoTrack system, this will create 5 new station rules that is a combination of the clock rules combined with your station default station rules. The second option is the import clock and global rule pairs option. And what this allows you to do is choose which clock rules to combine with which global rule sets to create new station rules. So if you want to make a combination of a clock rule and a specific global rule in AutoTrack into a new station rule set, you can do so. So let's take a look at both of these options. First of all, let's look at the import clock rules button. Click on the button, choose your database. hit OK. It'll ask you if you want to proceed, and you can say yes. And the rules have been done. You can see here we've got a couple of new rules have been added, or a couple of new station rule sets. Now there's no options with that, it just brings it in. So remember that's a combination of each clock rule set combined with the default station rules. But let's say if we want to create a combination of one, click on the import clock and global rule pair. Again, choose your database. First of all, you select the clock rule you want to use. So let's say I wanted to use the pop only one. Okay, and then it says which global rule set would you want to use. So I'm going to say the pop only global set as well, and ask you, are you sure? And there you go, it's created our specialist one there. Now my naming convention hasn't been great on this demonstration, as I've used pop only for both global rules and clock rules in AutoTrack, but you get the idea about how you can then build specialist station rule sets out of a combination of a clock rule and a global rule from AutoTrack. So if you've got lots of different rule sets, lots of different clock rules and lots of different global rule sets inside AutoTrack, this tool will allow you to create matching station rules inside of Myriad Schedule. And that's everything we really need to cover on station rules. In fact, we've now covered everything you need to set up your AutoTrack system. We started out by adding songs, links and adverts. We've seen how to actually add content and manage the content on the system, how to build simple and advanced clocks and assign them to hours of the week. And finally, we've had a look at how the rules can be applied to clocks in order to get the content you want. So now we just need to move on to actually scheduling some content and being able to review what's been scheduled and have a look at some reports. So let's move on to the scheduled log section. The scheduled log section allows you to schedule the log and also view the log and see what hours have been scheduled. And if you need to, you can also unschedule the log. Now, the first section in the scheduled log is actually the view log option. But as we haven't scheduled yet, it doesn't make much sense for us to go straight to view log. So instead, we're going to go straight into schedule log, schedule some content, and then we'll use view log to actually view what we've scheduled. But before we get started, I want to turn on a setting which I highly recommend you turn on when you're first setting up your Myriad Schedule system. Go to Station Settings, and then go on to the Scheduler tab. And there's an option here for keep a list of each item tested but rejected for each position in the scheduled log for X days. Now what this does is every time it schedules an item, everything that it considers to be put into that slot is kept in a database or kept in a file, so that you can actually view what items were considered for each slot and why they were rejected. Now this is particularly useful when you're getting set up, because if you are, as you're applying your rules, as you're changing the system and the station rules, sometimes you will have unscheduled items and you'll be unsure why they're unscheduled. And this will tell you. The only downside to this is it could be quite a lot of data, particularly on large categories. Take like a pop category where you've got several hundred songs. It may well consider several positions for each, or several songs for every position it schedules. It may be as many as 50 or 100 songs depending on your search depth. So as you can imagine, this is quite a lot of data, and so this does slow down the scheduling process somewhat. So once your Myriad schedule system is fully set up and you're happy with the scheduling, you can turn this option back off again to speed up scheduling, but we're going to leave it on for now so that if we have any issues with scheduling, we'll be able to show you how to diagnose them and fix them. Okay, so let's now push on to actually scheduling some content. Click on the Schedule Log button or option in the Scheduled Log section. This will open up the Scheduled Log window. Now, this will look similar for both Myriad Schedule and Schedule Plus customers, with the exception that Schedule Plus customers will have this section here which allows you to change the order that items are scheduled in. That's quite relevant, because basically the order they're scheduled in means, because particularly with enhanced scheduling, means that the categories that are scheduled first will take priority over the categories that are scheduled last. So in this particular scenario, the A list will be scheduled first, and therefore songs from the A list are less likely to be rejected because of songs from other categories already been scheduled. So imagine you've got the latest Rihanna track in your A list. You don't want that to be rejected because you played a Rihanna track from your classic pop category. So you would schedule your A list first and then your other categories later. Myriad Schedule Standard doesn't allow this. It schedules in whatever order you have here. As a tip, if you should, when you set up your category names in Myriad Schedule Standard, it is worth putting your A list first, and that way the A list will be scheduled first regardless of whether you have a schedule or plus. If you do want to move the orders up, let's say we wanted to make pop more important than recurrent, we can just click on the plus button and you can see it moves up the list, and you can move it back down the list like that. Okay, so let's take a more general look at this window. At the top here, it tells you the last time you're scheduled up to. So you can see we've scheduled up to the 14th of November on this system. Then we have a date selection option to allow us to select the date and time. I'm just going to select today, although I could click on from and to, or I could click even in here to specify the exact hours if I wish to. The schedule button is the button we'll use to actually trigger the schedule process. You can also from here do an unschedule. You can reschedule the adverts only, or you could remove the adverts from the log. But right now we just want to schedule the main log, so we're going to leave it ticked on, schedule the log. Next, we've got the actual scheduling steps. As you can see, there are 6 steps for scheduling here, and you can choose not to do, you can choose to exclude any one of these steps, or you can exclude any category inside those steps. So for example, if I didn't want to schedule my advert breaks and my adverts just now, I could untick step 4, and when I schedule, it will do everything except for the adverts, which it will just step over. Or I may be wanting to schedule a week ahead, but not pick my A-list yet. So I could actually untick the A-list, hit schedule, and it would schedule everything for that day except for the A-list. I could then later have it so that I schedule for the same time period, but only the A-list. So I could go through and I could untick all the other songs, and so only the A-list category songs will be ticked. Now the reason you may want to do this is sometimes you might want to schedule a long time in advance. Maybe you want to schedule 2 or 3 weeks in advance so people can voice track, but you still want to be able to include your A-list songs, update them so that each week there's new songs in the A-list. So you may choose to schedule 2 or 3 weeks ahead or a month ahead. It doesn't really matter how far ahead you go with everything but the A-list, so that people can schedule, can voice track and see the log except for the A-list. And then each week you would schedule just the A-list. And to help you with that, you can actually save these as presets. So you can save this one as a preset and give it a title of just a list. And then later on you can load that up by dropping this down here. So you can see I've got one that I saved earlier called not A-list, and that is everything but the A-list. So I might schedule this for 2 weeks, and then next week I would go and load up the just A-list preset and schedule that for next week, so that my next week's A-lists are included or added to the schedule that's already been generated for next week. You can also set a default. So it may be that actually you want to have, rather than load a preset, you may decide to have a certain preset that is your default, and you can change that by setting it up in here or loading it up and then clicking on the set default button. Right, I want to just go back to have everything on, so I'm just going to turn everything back on, and I'm just going to also make sure that that is my default setting from now on. So everything is on. So I've chosen the date I want to schedule, which is today, and I can click on the schedule button and it will actually go off and generate that schedule for me. As you can see, it's filling in the details on the left hand side here. The first step is that it creates the schedule, the individual laydown of the category. Then it adds the music for each category in turn. You can see it's saving items here. This is the writing the history that I mentioned that takes a few seconds to do, which you can turn off. Once it's done that for the other categories, it's quicker because there's less content in those categories. So as you can see, it's just burning through the rest of the categories and scrolling down through the rest of the steps. Once it's finished the schedule process, you get two windows open automatically. You get the log opens automatically, but also you get this warnings window. This window shows you any issues the system had while scheduling. So you can see for each hour here, in this first hour, we can see we've got 3 unscheduled songs, and that's resulted in us having an hour that is less than an hour long. So it's only 45 minutes in this particular case. So that's worth investigating. So let's bring up the log and take a look. So the log window is also loaded by default, and you can see here is the midnight hour, and you can see the first song in the hour is a pop song. Okay, so you remember we turned on the setting to keep schedule history, so we can now investigate as to why this pop song has been unscheduled. So I'm going to right click and do schedule information, display information considered and tested for this position. And this will show me all the songs that it tried to place in this position. So you can see it tried nearly 100 items, 98 items. And here is the rule that prevented those from being scheduled. And you can see almost across the board, the thing that prevented it from being scheduled was a forced tag. So let's take a quick look at the clock and see why that would have happened. Click on Edit Clocks. And you can see I'm using the Breakfast Advanced show across the entire day just as a demonstration here. So if I double click on one, we can see that the item that we needed to look at was was one of these songs. And if we scroll across, we can see that this song, this first song in the hour, is saying it must have an hour opener tag and must not have a love song tag. Now, I know that we don't have many songs with the hour opener tag or the love song tag. In fact, we don't have many songs with tags at all. So by forcing a tag in here, that's what's caused that item to not be schedulable. To confirm that the issue is having songs that have the hour opener tag without having too many songs that have that tag, the easiest way to check that is to click on the reports and choose media reports. And then inside the media reports, if you scroll down here, there is a tag section. So you can expand the tags and choose the hour opener tag. And you can see we have 18 songs that have the hour opener tag. And of course, we are only searching half of the pop deck, so the chances of it giving up on that are quite often. So that is what's causing that problem. Back in our clock, to fix this, we have two options. We could either add more songs with the hour opener tag, or we could go through and remove these tags from our clock until such time as we have enough songs that actually have those tags in. Obviously, for this demonstration, I'm taking the option to remove those from the clock, but actually the best way to fix that in a station would be to add tags to enough songs to make that work. So what I'm going to show you now is actually unscheduling today and then rescheduling and see if we get a better result. So I'm going to change the drop down here to be unschedule, or I could have clicked on the unschedule button here. I'm going to choose my date range, which is today, and I'm going to click on the unschedule button. And it just goes through and removes the day from the log. Now I want to reschedule again, so I'm just going back to schedule, choose today again, and hit schedule. So here you can see in our hour warnings, we have no unscheduled items now. We do still have hours that are running a little short. So in my clock, I almost certainly would need to put 1 or 2 more songs on there just to make sure I have enough content for the hour. So while we're here, let's have another look at the log. You can see that the system has placed the adverts into the log as part of the schedule process, and it is filled the content based on the clocks. So that is us manually scheduling. Next thing to look at is how to view what has been scheduled, and also how to see what hours you have scheduled and what hours you have not scheduled. So if we want to view the log, just simply click on view the log. It'll open up the log window. And this is like a cut down version of the log that is on your playout system. And in fact, you have many of the same features in there. So you can go to edit, you can import, export and remove all sorts of things from inside here. Basically everything you can do on the log in Myriad Playout, you can do in here, even voice tracking. But sometimes you don't want to view the log. Sometimes you want to see what hours have you scheduled. You can do that by clicking on the log hour information button. This will open up a grid which shows you the hours, the days that you have scheduled, and if it's in grey you haven't scheduled. If it's in green, you can see if you hover over it, it says it has scheduled it. It has also merged the adverts, and this kind of green to yellow or orange shows that we've on this particular day and hour we've scheduled, but we haven't merged the adverts in yet. This just provides a really easy way of viewing what's been scheduled and what hasn't, and you can also double click on it to open up that hour in the log. Unscheduling, we kind of already covered this, but I'll just run through it one last time. So you click on Unschedule, you choose the day or date range that you want to unschedule, and you click on the Unschedule button. It's as easy as that. Okay, and that's how you would manually schedule and also view what's on the log. And we also covered a little bit of diagnosing any issues that come up in the log as well. We should also next have a look at how we can set up Myriad to automatically schedule. Once you're happy all your clocks are in place, your station rules are working and your system is scheduling correctly, you can set up Myriad 5 to automatically maintain a schedule X many days ahead so that you no longer have to manually schedule that content. And as Myriad Schedule now includes advert scheduling, you really don't have to worry about anything manual anymore. I'm just going to show you how to very briefly set that up because it's very easy to do. Go to the station menu and choose station settings, and then when the station settings loads, go to the scheduler tab, and this section here, automatic schedule management, is the section you're interested in, and you can drop down the option here and choose either never, even in an emergency, in which case Myriad will never ever schedule anything automatically. If the log runs out, in which case Myriad will schedule, but only if it goes into an hour that hasn't been scheduled. For the next hour, Myriad will automatically schedule the next hour ahead. So this is very good if your content is constantly changing. For the next full day, this will, as the name suggests, Myriad will maintain one rolling day of schedule at all times. The next 7 days, where Myriad will maintain a full week. And finally, you can choose a custom number of days. And at that point, you can then set the number of days here, anything from 1 onwards. You can also set a time when Myriad will check to see if it needs to schedule, and currently the default is 40 minutes past the hour. So at 40 minutes past each hour, it checks to see, is the next hour there? Do I need to schedule anything? The way this works in practice is because most of the time you're probably going to set it to do 7 days or 14 days. It usually will only schedule at 40 minutes past midnight because it does full days at a time. So normally you would never see it automatically scheduling unless you were looking at the system at around 40 minutes past midnight. The final option in this section is the automatically remove logs after X many days. This allows the system to maintain itself in terms of keeping records of what's in the log. So with it set to 90 days by default, if you were to scroll back 91 days in the log, you would run out of content. Once that's done, Myriad will automatically maintain X many days ahead, or whatever other option you've selected in those settings. The final thing we're going to cover in this video is the play logs and the report section to allow you to get some insight into what's going on with your system. So let's take a look at play logs first. Click on the play logs button and select the date and time that you want to view the play logs for. Hit search, and this will give you a list of everything that the system played. So this isn't what was scheduled, this is exactly what Myriad actually played. So we can see, whilst I might have scheduled the full day today, I've only played around 5 or 6 items. Okay, let's take a look at some other things we can do with that play log report. If I rerun it, you can also export that as a file, or you can also export a copyright report. So if I click on the copyright report, I can then choose the copyright body I wish to report to. So let's say I was doing PPL UK, and I can hit search. And then this formats the report in such a way that is acceptable by the selected copyright body. So that's the UK, PPL and PRS. Then you do export to file, and you just choose where you're going to save it. And that's all you need to do to generate your copyright reports. Next, we're going to take a look at the reports menu. In here, we have several different reports. We've got the media report window, which allows you to view the content on your system. So this is how you'd browse what's in your pop category, or what has the opener tag, that type of thing. If you remember, this is also where you would do mass changing, mass deleting, moving, copying and exporting as well. To gain more information about the adverts that are in use in your system, there is the Advert Manager section in the Media section on the left-hand side. Click on Advert Manager. This opens up the Advert Manager window. Here you can choose the type of information you need. You can choose today, which will show you adverts that are valid today, i.e. they can be scheduled, and their run dates include today's date. Old adverts are adverts that could be scheduled except for their run dates have expired. Current adverts shows you pretty much the same thing as today. Future adverts show adverts that are enabled for scheduling, but their run dates will start at some day in the future. So these are adverts that are coming up soon. And all adverts will show you all adverts on the system. Plus you can also choose a custom date range if you wish. So here we have all the adverts on the system. The ones that aren't valid have got a red cross beside them. The ones that are currently in rotation have a green circle. We can highlight one of those items and we can click on View Play, and it will show us the play. So if I choose today, see if we've played this advert today, you can see this advert's been played once today. And we could also then export this as a file if we wanted to send that to the advertiser. From here you can also edit by double clicking, and that will open up the information for the advert. You can also view the play logs from the reports window on the advert themselves, on the advert edit window. Click on the reports tab and click on play logs. And that's really all you need to know about the Advert Manager window. Now let's take a look at some of the other reports available on the reports menu. Playlog reports gives you access to the play logs we've already covered earlier in this section. Duplicate Media Finder, this report allows you to search for duplicates on your system. So if I'm looking for just title or title and artist, I can choose that there, and I'm going to hit search. So I'm just doing a duplicate title search here, and you can see we've got a few duplicates here. So if I drop one of these down, we can see that this item is actually repeated 3 times on our system. And of course we could then choose to edit or delete any of those duplicates. In the schedule analysis section, this gives us a report which shows us the top rules causing problems on our system for both songs and links. So if I do top rule fails per hour for songs and choose today, for example, we can see the rules that are causing us the most problems in each hour. So we can see song type min max in a row in the 11 o'clock hour caused 257 items to be rejected. So this gives us some insight into which rules are making scheduling more difficult. Of course, it could well be that that's perfectly valid. It just gives you some insight into what rules are causing more problems than other rules when the system is scheduling. In the schedule log reports section, you have a few different reports. Schedule log hour information. This is the same as the log hour information button that is here. So it basically shows you what hours of the day have been scheduled and which hours have not been scheduled. Log schedule summary gives you a nice summary overview of what's been scheduled on the date range that's selected. So you can see today we've scheduled 210 songs, 19 from the A list, 2 from the B list, 106 from pop. And you can also take a look at the advert breaks that have been scheduled in the day. Log warnings. This is the same report that you get at the end of any scheduling session. So this just gives you calls out any issues that have been done. So you can change the date range here, obviously, so you can look at future or past days. But it just gives you a by hour warning of all of the hours. So you can see we've got no real problems today, except for all of these hours are underrunning because the clocks that we're using don't have enough songs in. Which we also discussed previously when we were talking about scheduling. Finally, the schedule log discrepancy report. What this does is it compares what Myriad Schedule scheduled against what Myriad Playout played and gives you some insight into that information. So you can see here this song or this advert here was scheduled to play yesterday, but wasn't played. So this gives you the ability to check again things. So if an advertiser, for example, says that their advert wasn't played, you could check on this report to see whether it's scheduled and then if it was or wasn't played. This will also show you if things are changed or other things, other changes or discrepancies between what's scheduled and what was actually played. There's some station reports, which gives you station information, gives you some information about the individual stations you have. So you can see we're running 2 stations here. We can see the features that are enabled inside that station. And finally, there's system reports, which you really won't ever need to use, but there's database file statistics and SQL database file statistics. You really probably only need them if our support team actually asks for that. So there are an overview of all of the reports you can run. Remember, you also can use the media report. Is probably the one you'll use most often because it allows you to browse the content, mass change, mass delete, mass move, that type of thing. But all these reports are also available in Myriad Playout as well. As we're going through the menus, let's briefly take a look at all the other menu options. On the file menu, you can install a media pack, which you can download some content from our website, or you can actually export media packs from Myriad Player and install them, but you're very unlikely to need to do that inside of Myriad Schedule. You can log in and log out, and you can also change station. So if you're running multiple stations, you can choose which station you're actually working with. And of course, you can exit Myriad Schedule from here. View allows you to Customize Myriad. Now these settings will be the same settings you have access to inside Myriad Playout. Change password, display media browser, which opens up a mini version of the media wall, and also import wizard, which launches the import wizard, which you can also get to from the import wizard on the main left-hand menu. In the script section, you can access the scripts. So there's a folder in Myriad Player which allows you to access and edit scripts. We just covered the reports menu in the last section. Station gives you access to your station settings, which is station-specific settings. Just as a warning, changing these in here is obviously shared with Myriad Playout, so anything you change in here is also affecting Myriad Playout. Categories and attributes, this is where you would add in or edit your categories, category names, types, genders, eras and tags for songs, links, adverts and news items. And you can do that if you're running multiple stations. You can also choose which station you do that for. And finally, reload the station settings from the database. If you have an issue, you can reload the stations from the main database. Security allows you to manage your users. It's the same security actions that you have or options you have in Myriad Playout, and they're covered elsewhere in the Myriad Playout training videos, so we won't be covering them in here, but you can access them from in here. Also, you can access the user history and the user summary information, and you can get to the security settings to create security groups. Inside the settings, there's an application settings. Now this is just basically, this is for Myriad Schedule rather than Myriad Playout, so there's a much reduced set of options on here, but you can choose, sort of go through. So you got your data locations, your media ranges, you can choose about automatic logging in. On the media editor, you can specify the files, and you can specify an external media editor if you wish to. And then there's some advanced settings, which we wouldn't recommend you necessarily change unless you have discussed it with the broadcast radio technical team. And finally, you have media engine settings, which allows you to say what sound device to use for the players. This is the same settings that are shared with Myriad Playout, so you should probably only adjust these if you intend to adjust them in Myriad Playout as well. Database settings allows you to get to the top level database settings in there, which again, these are shared with Myriad Playout, so you shouldn't change them unless you intend to change them inside Myriad Playout as well, but it just gives you access to them from inside of Myriad Schedule. And you can also get to the categories and attributes, and also open the media item recycling bin. So any items that are deleted in either Playout or Myriad Schedule are copied to the recycle bin folder. Finally, you can license your product and manage your licenses from inside there. On the help menu, you can access the help system, access tech support. You can visit our website, you can check for updates, and you can view the history for the product. And also, quite important, you can also view the version number as well. So you can, if you're ever asked by technical exactly which version you're running, you can open up About and then give them this number here in its entirety. So that's the menu system inside Myriad Schedule, and that is Myriad Schedule pretty much covered in this video tutorial. The final thing we're going to do is just quickly look at Myriad Playout and see how to access all the tools we've covered in this tutorial through Myriad Playout. As we mentioned way back at the beginning of video 1, all of the tools outlined in Myriad Schedule that we've covered in this tutorial are also available in standard Myriad Playout. So you can choose whether to use the standalone Myriad Schedule application or access the tools directly within Myriad Playout. All the tools are exactly the same, and all the tools work in exactly the same way. It's just that accessing them may be slightly different in Playout. So let's quickly run through how to get to all the top level tools in Myriad Schedule from within Myriad Playout. Firstly, within the content of the media wall, any item you click on and click edit will bring up the Myriad edit window, which of course has the editing capabilities for editing the audio and adding timing, as well as the categorization and the restrictions. If you go to the advert section of your media wall and open up one of the adverts, you'll see that you have the Advert tab replacing the Restrictions tab, and this allows you to set the play pattern for the advert, as well as the run times and all the other things. And as well as the categorization, you have the collision tags inside of adverts, which is slightly different to the standard tags you'll have on songs and links. Of course, you can also do the same thing for links. See the categorization inside links and the restrictions. Almost everything else you need can be found on the station menu. If you drop this down, you can see you can edit the Myriad Schedule clocks, which opens up the clock window, which is used for accessing and editing your clocks and also assigning those clocks to hours of the week. You can also edit the Myriad Schedule station rules, which will open up the station rules window, which allows you to access the station rules as we outlined earlier. You can view the song decks or the link decks, and you can open multiple song and link decks if you need to, so you can drag items between decks to move categorization. You can also access the Advert Manager from inside the station menu. This allows you to view the current adverts that are playing today or adverts that are coming in the future. You can also access the play reports for the adverts from this window. You can also access the item history, and there are also other settings in here like station settings and categories and attributes, which allow you to change the categories and the attributes. So this allows you to access the or change the category names, genders, types, eras and tags. Types, genders and eras obviously only for Myriad Schedule Plus. Plus you can also use get to the links, the adverts and news items from inside this window. So all of the windows work and function exactly the same as they do in the in Myriad Schedule standalone application. They're just mostly available via the station menu or obviously directly on the media items themselves. If you want to schedule, you click on the hour import and then you click on the schedule or log import option, and that will then access the Myriad Schedule log window, which we saw how to use this to schedule a period of time, and we can also exclude or include categories, and if you have Myriad Schedule Plus you can also change the order in which the categories are scheduled. So just like all the other windows, this is exactly the same as we looked at in Myriad Schedule. It's just accessible via the schedule button here. Similarly with the adverts, you can choose whether to merge the adverts in. So if you click on that one, it will just go straight to the schedule adverts, which allows you to either schedule the adverts in. You can also remove the adverts from the same window. So that's how you would access the Myriad Schedule tools from inside Myriad, and that brings us to the end of the Myriad Schedule training video. I hope you found it useful. Check out our website and YouTube channels for other training videos and other supporting videos. And we have a whole ton of support articles and help articles on help.broadcastradio.com, which is the portal we update very regularly with new content and any changes to documentation. So all that remains to be said is thanks for watching, and I hope you have fun with Myriad Schedule.